Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença, and today we're going to talk about operators in the relation of operators of Scratch and Python, okay? If you want to get the solution to these problems and also an ebook on how to become a developer in 2021, click on the description below. So basically these problems here, I'm going to teach you how these operators here that you already saw on Scratch, you can use the same logic in Python, okay? So the first example we're going to use is this pick random, okay? I'm not so when you're programming, you normally don't use this function, this pick random, but I'm going to teach you because it's in here in the operators. So basically when green flag clicked, we're going to say a pick random from 1 up to 10. So when we green flag clicked, it's going to give us 7. When I click again, 6, 8. So it gives us a random number, okay? In Scratch, we can use a library that is called random, that it basically do this for us, okay? As we can see in here. So basically we can use a this random library in here, and we can pick so this random blah 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 returns a random integer between a and b inclusive. So that's what we're going to do. So in in Python, when we don't have a specific information that we're going to use, so for example, when we don't have a function that it's going to return us something that's going to make our life easier, for example, this random thing, we have to import the library where this function is. Okay, so in here we're going to import random, that is the name of the library, and we're going to do what? We're going to create a variable called number, and inside this variable I'm going to call this function, so random.randint, and as we can see in here, this random.randint returns a random integer in between a and b inclusive. So here we're going to do this. So we're going to return a and b inclusive. And after all, we're going to print number, okay? Let's see what happens when we click in here. When we do python scratch.py, give us a number 1. When we do this again, give us a number 4, okay? So this is something that is just for you to know that there are things that we might not know, but we can search on the internet that it's going to help us, okay? So this is just a tool, okay? Now let's do something that is really important for you to get and feel very comfortable with, okay? That is this case in here. Let me take this out. So basically, we're going to have the when green flag clicked. We're going to set the variable counter as 1, okay? And we're going to do a repetition 10 times. And what are we going to do? Actually, I'm going to let this in 0, okay? And we're going to do a repetition 10 times. And we're going to have an if and else condition. We already saw some examples of if and else and about for loops. That's why I'm passing this faster. And what are we going to do? We're going to use the operators inside the if and else conditions. So here the first operator that we're going to use is this one. So greater than. I'm going to put, so if the variable counter is greater than 5, I'm going to say, so say for 1 second, I'm going to say I am greater than 5, okay? And the else, I'm going to say what? I'm going to say the number, okay? So we can know what is happening inside. And after all this if and else, what we're going to do? We're going to change the value of counter. Otherwise, we're going to have always the number 0 in here. So when we run this code, we're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now all of them is going to be greater than 5. Why? Because here we have this condition, counter greater than 5. So every number that it's greater than 5 in this counter here, we'll print I am greater than 5. Okay, so let's do this. So basically what are we going to do is we're going to do a for loop. Okay, so for I in range 10, and I'm going to pass this part here faster because we already have a for loop section, a for loop video. Okay, so take a look at that video if you don't get. And we're going to do an if condition inside this for loop. So if I'm going to change I for counter just to let things equal. So if counter greater than 5, we're going to print I'm greater than 5, okay? And in the else, I'm going to print the counter. And we don't need to do this change counter by 1 because the range function already do this for us, okay? That's why I'm not going to change in here. So let's put a debug 50.scratch.py and let me put a breakpoint in here. So let's see what happens, okay? So when we take a look at here, we have counter equals to 0, so we're going to check. So 0 is greater than 5. No, so this if condition is not satisfied, and we go to the else. Now we're going to print counter. Next iteration, I equals to 1. So 1 is greater than 5. No, so we go to the else condition and we print counter. I is equals to 2, so 2 is greater than 5. No, so we're going to print counter. I equals to 3, so 3 is greater than 5. No, so we're go to the else and we print the value. Next iteration, I equals to 4, so 4 is greater than 5. No, so we print the counter. Next iteration, 5 is greater than 5. No, 5 is equals to 5, so we go to the else. And now we have counter equals to 6. So 6 is greater than 5. Yes, so we're going to enter in this if condition and we're going to print I'm greater than 5, as we can see in here. Next iteration, counter is equals to 7, so 7 is greater than 5. Yes, so we're going to do this I'm greater than 5. Next iteration, counter equals to 8, so 8 is greater than 5. Yes, so we're going to print I'm greater than 5. Next iteration, counter equals to 9, so 9 is greater than 5. Yes, so we're going to enter in this if condition and print I'm greater than 5. And now we're going to check. So our counter has value 9 and our range is until 10. Since 10 is it's a stop position not included, we're going to stop the for loop and we run our code. Okay? Now let's do the next problem. So instead of greater than 5, we're going to change this condition for less than 5. Okay, so now it's less than 5. So what is going to happen? If it's less than 5, we're going to say I am less than 5. Okay, so now we change the condition in here, this operator. So it's going to print I'm less than 5 until number 5. When we reach 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's printing everything for us. Okay, and in here we're going to do the same. So we're going to change here this for less than, and let's see what happens. And I am also going to change here for less than 5. So when we do debug 50 scratch.py, what are we going to have? So here we're going to do counter equals to 0, so 0 is less than 5. Yes, so we're going to print I'm less than 5. Okay, now next counter is equals to 1, so 1 is less than 5. Yes, we're going to print I'm less than 5, and we're going to do this until we reach counter equals to 5. Now our counter is equals to 4. Next iteration, counter is equals to 5. So 5 is less than 5. No, so we're going to print the number 5. We go to the else, okay? Next iteration, counter is equals to 6. So 6 is less than 5. No, it's greater, so we're going to print 6. And we're going to do this until we reach number 9. And why 9? Because remember, the position stop here is not included. So we're going to stop one position before, that it's number 9, okay? Now, next iteration, we're going to change again this condition here. For instead of less or greater, we're going to just use the equals. So if counter is equals to 5, we're going to say I am number 5, okay? So when we do this in here, we're going to see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I am number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, and we're going to do this in here. We're just going to set counter, but when we are comparing things, we're not just going to use one equals, we have to use double equal, okay? So remember this. So I am number 5. So every time we are comparing things, we use double equals, but when we are when we are declaring a variable, we just use one, as we already saw in the previous problems, okay? So let's see what happens. So clear debug 50 scratch.py, and let's see. So counter is equals to 0. So 0 is equals to 5. No. So we're going to the else. Next iteration, I is equals to 5. 1 is equals to 5, sorry. No. So we go to the else, and we're going to do this until we have here what? Number 5. So counter is equals to 5. Yes, so now we're going to enter this if condition, and we're going to print I am number 5. Next iteration, I is equals to 6, so 6 is equals to 5. No, so we're going to print counter, and we're going to print counter until number 9. Okay? And we have this in here, the same thing as we saw in Scratch. Now we're going to make things a little bit more complicated, okay? So now we're going to use the AND operator. So let me take this out, and we're going to do here 2 conditions. And when we use AND, both conditions need to be satisfied, otherwise we're not going to enter in this if condition here, okay? So the first condition I'm going to set is counter greater than 5, okay? And the other condition is counter, where is the AND condition? Where I put the AND, so I forgot to pass the AND in here, sorry. So counter is greater than 5, and the other condition will be counter is less than and the other condition is what? Counter is less than 8. Okay, let me zoom out and you can see everything. And counter is less than 8. And what are we going to print? So I can be 6 or 7, okay? And the other we're going to print. So here I am. It's going to be I am 6 or 7, okay? Why 6 or 7? Because the only 2 numbers that we are in the range of 5 and 6, so the only 2 numbers that is greater than 5 and less than 8 is 6 and 7. So this AND operator, what this means, these 2 conditions here must be true to enter this if condition. Otherwise, if one of them is false or both of them is false, we go to the else. So that's what we're going to do in here. So if, let's put this, so if counter is greater than 5, okay, and counter is less than 8, we're going to print I am 6 or 7, okay? Otherwise, we're going to print counter. So let's do debug 50 scratch.py, and when we run this in here, we're going to see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I am 6 or 7 twice, 8, 9, and that, okay? That's why we're going to do this in here. So let's put a breakpoint, the debug 50, and let's see what happens. So here we're going to do step into, so counter is equal to 0, so counter is greater than 5. No, so the other condition will also be false, because once one condition is false, this if is not satisfied, so we're going to the else. Next iteration, I is greater than, so counter is greater than 5, 1 is greater than 5, no. So we're going to keep going to the else until we reach some number that is greater than 5. Okay, so 5 is equal to 5, and now, okay, so counter is 6, so 6 is greater than 5, yes, so one of the two conditions is satisfied. Now we have to check the second. So 6 is less than 8, yes, so we're going to enter this if condition, and we're going to print I am 6 or 7. Next iteration, we have counter equals to 7, so 7 is greater than 5. Yes, so this first condition is satisfied. Now let's check the second. So 7 is less than 8. Yes, so since both conditions are satisfied, we're going to print I am 6 or 7. Next iteration, counter is equals to 8. We're going to check. So 8 is greater than 5. Yes, but now we have to check the second condition. 8 is less than 8. No, so since one condition is true and the other is false, basically so since we're using and, both conditions are false, so then we're not going to enter in the if condition, and we're going to print counter, and this is going to happen again. Okay, so this is the and condition. Now let's check the or. What happens when we do or? Okay, if we want to print 6 and 7 this way, we're going to do the same. We're going to do a different thing in here. So let's take this out. So actually, let me take the counter in here, and I'm going to take out this AND operator. Now we're going to use the OR operator, okay? So we're going to have two options here, okay? Counter equals to 6, or counter equals to 7, okay? The OR operator means what? For a condition be satisfied, one of these two conditions must be true. If this condition is true and the other is not, it's okay. Since it's the OR operator, it's fine, and we're going to enter in the if condition. And we can see this just by looking at the sentence, because a number can't be equals to 6 and equals to 7 at the same time. So the counter, if the counter has value 6, our counter has value 7, we're going to print I'm 6 or 7, okay? So let's see in here what happens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm 6 or 7, I'm 6 or 7, 8, 9, and that's it, okay? It's the same output, but with a different logic. And that's why we're going to do this in here. So we're going to do if counter equals, remember, double equal, to 6, or counter equals 7, we're going to print I am 6 or 7, okay? So let's use the debugger here. So debug 50 is scratch.py. So let's check. The first value of counter is 0, okay? And we're going to check. So 0 is equal to 6. No, but let's see the second option. So 0 is equal to 7. No. So this if condition is not satisfied, and we're going to go print the else. Next condition, so counter is equal to 1. So 1 is equal to 6. No. So let's check the second. Counter is equal to 7. No. So we're going to print the else. And we're going to keep doing this. We're going to go to the else until we reach 6. So let's see when we reach 6. So now our counter has value 6. So 6 is equal to 6. Yes, so we don't need to check the second thing because we have an OR operator here. And we're going to enter in the if condition and print I am 6 or 7. Next iteration, counter equals to 7. So 7 is equal to 6. No. So let's check the second condition. 7 is equal to 7. Yes. So since this condition is satisfied and we're using the OR operator, we're going to print I am 6 or 7. And then now that we don't have any more counter equals to 6 or 7, everyone's going to print counter. Every other iteration is going to print the counter variable. Okay? Now we're going to use another thing in here. That is the not operator. So if we put here not, and we're going to say if I'm not counter equals to 5, I'm going to print I am not 5. Okay? And let's see what happens. So it's going to print I am not 5 until we reach the number 5. So when we reach 5, we're going to print the counter because we don't enter in the if, and then until we reach 0. Okay? So here we're going to do the same. So we're going to do if not counter equals 5, what will happen? We're going to print I am not 5, and let's save it. So clear debug 50 scratch.py, and let's check what happens in here. So first, counter is equal to 0, so when we use the not, we're kind of denying the thing that we're putting inside. So when we do if not counter equals to 5, it's the same thing as saying if counter is different than 5, we're going to enter in this condition. So since counter is equal to 0 and it's not equal to 5, we're going to enter in the if condition and print I am not 5. The same will happen with counter equals to 1. So 1 is equal to 5? No. So since this is false, we're going to enter in the if condition. So basically we're checking. When we use the not, we're checking the opposite of what is inside of here. So since counter is different than 5, this if condition is satisfied, and we're going to print I am not 5. And we're going to do this until we reach the number 5. When we have counter equals to 5, let's see what happens. When we have counter equals to 5, we're going to check. So 5 is equal to 5, yes. So this not operator here wants to deny what is inside of here. So since counter is equal to 5, this if condition is not satisfied, and we go to the else. So we're going to print the number 5. And now again, so counter is equal to 6, so 6 is equal to 5. No, so that's what we want. The not is want the different that this is not equal to 5. So we're going to print I am not 5. And we're going to do this until we reach number 9. Okay? Now we're going to work with this problem here. Okay, so basically the idea is what? We're going to set counter by 1, okay? And we're going to do 10 repetitions, and each repetition we're going to print something. So here in the first condition, we're going to check if counter module 2 is equal to 0. This module 2 is going to give you the remainder of the division, okay? So if counter module 2 is equal to 0, it's an even number, else it's going to print the number, okay? So we can see this in here. 1, I'm even number, 3, I'm even number, 4, 5, I'm even number, 7, I'm even number, 9, and I'm even number, okay? This is basically it. So now we're going to do this here using Python. So basically we're going to do an iteration, okay? So we're going to do again for counter in range, okay? And we're going to do here. So since we are starting at 1, so let's remember here Python range double 3 scopes. So remember that we normally use the default case of start and step, okay? So the default is 0 and the step, the default is 1. And we normally use the stop here. But in this case, we're going to start at counter equals to 1, right? Not counter equals to 0. So we have to set what is our start position. So we're going to use the syntax here. So our start is 1, okay, as we can see in here, 1. And you see that we did 10 repetitions, but we didn't print the number 11. So let's check again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we stop when we reach 11. So here our stop, since it's a not included position, we're going to put here 11, okay? And now what are we going to do? We're going to use this if and else condition. So we're going to say if counter, and the module in Scratch we use the percent, okay? If counter module 2 equals 0, so this is the condition. If the division of counter by 2 has a remainder equals to 0, so we're going to print even number, okay? And the else, we're going to print the counter only, okay? So let's save it and let's see what happens. So cd scratch and python scratch.py. And when we run in here, we can see that we have 1, even number, 3, even number, blah, 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 up to 10. So let's take a look what happens if we use the debugger, okay? So debug 50 scratch.py. Let's put a breakpoint on line 1, okay? And let's run our code. So it's going to appear here, this, right? This part here. So basically we're going to start our iteration and our counter will start at value 1, okay? Because we're setting here that it's 1. So counter, okay, counter equals to 1. Now we're going to do the division. So 1 divided by 2, it's equals to what? It's equal to 0.5. Or if we think in an integer division, the division will be 0 and the remainder will be 1, right? Remember how remainder works in division. So this is not going to be true, right? Because actually, let me run this in a different way. I think this is going to help you understand what is happening. So we're going to see here the R of remainder, and we're going to do counter 2. And we're going to put in here R, okay? I think this will help you understand what is happening. So let's put a breakpoint again. Debug 50 scratch.py. And let's see what happens here. So again, our counter will start at 1, right? And now we're going to do this division and we're going to get the remainder. So 1 divided by 2 is 0 and the remainder is 1. So our R will be 1. So R is equal to 0. No, so this if condition is not satisfied. So we're not going to print an even number. We're going to the else case and we're going to print counter, as we can see in here, okay? Next iteration, we're going to have counter plus 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So now our counter has value 2. And now we're going to do this division. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and the remainder is what? Is 0. So when we click here, the remainder is 0. So if R is equal to 0, we're going to print even number. So R is equal to 0. Yes, we can see in here that R is equal to 0. So we're going to print an even number. Next iteration, we're going to add 1 in the counter variable. So we're going to have counter equals to 3. So counter divided by 2, it's equal to 1. And what is the remainder? It's 1, right? Because 2 multiplied by 1 is 2. So we have the remainder equals to 1. So R will be equal to 1. So R is equal to 0. No, this if condition is not satisfied, right? Because our R is equal to 1. So we're going to the else. And we're going to keep doing this until the end. So again, now we have counter equals to 4. So what is the remainder of the division of 4 divided by 2? Is 0, right? So R is equal to 0. And we're going to do this until we reach the number 10. And why until we reach number 10? Because, let's see here, we're going to do this in here. And why? Because here our stop position is 11. And remember that the stop position is an integer number specifying at which position to stop and is not included. So since we reached 10 here, if we add plus 1, counter would be 11, but 11 is our stop position. So we're going to get out of this for loop. Okay? So now we're going to work with this example here. We're going to set counter equals to 1, and then we're going to print 2 things. The first thing that we're going to print is, actually let me change here the order. So the first thing that we're going to print here is counter minus 2, okay? So we're going to do 1 minus 2. And then we're going to print the absolute value of counter minus 2, okay? Because I want you to understand what this absolute value means. So basically, let's start. So first, we're setting counter equals to 0, so we're going to initialize our counter equals to 1, sorry. And then we're going to print counter minus 2, okay? And when we do this, let's check what happens. So when we do here party scratch, we're going to have minus 1. And why minus 1? Because we're doing 1 minus 2 and the result is minus 1. But we can grab the absolute value of this difference here. We don't need to get the negative value in here. And how can we do this? We can use this absolute function. And we have this in Python also. So basically the absolute function returns the absolute value of the specified number. So let's use this, try it yourself. If we have x equals to this abs and inside we have minus 7.25, when we print it, it's going to give us the absolute value. So it's not going to give us if it's a positive or a negative value. It's going to give us just the value, okay? And it's basically what we're doing. So we're going to do basically this 1 minus 2, and it's going to return for us not minus 1 as we have in here, but it's going to return us 1, okay? So this is what we're going to print in here. So we're going to say print abs, okay? So this is a function, and you see here that it changes to blue. And we're going to say counter minus 2, okay? This is a trick for you to use because some problems you might face will need to get the absolute value of a difference, okay? So this is one trick that you can use. For example, problems that you're going to work with distance and those things, it's important to know absolute value, okay? Basically the idea here is to see what happens when we use when we do a division, okay? Here it's a normal division. We're going to receive a floating point division using round, okay? So it's going to round the number for if you are more if you are near to the half, it's going to round for less, and if it's more than the half, it's going to round for more. The floor is going to round for less, okay, and the ceiling is going to round for more. And how we can do this? So basically, let's first print 5 divided by 2, okay, and when we run it, we're going to have 2.5, okay. This is in Python we can do a floating point division. We use just 1//, and if we want to print an integer division, we use double // and we can see in here. So when we do with 1//, we're going to have as a result a floating point number, okay, 2.5. And when we do with 2//, we're going to have an integer division. So the integer division, what means? We're going to have a division that is going to bring us a result as an integer. And here it makes the round for us, okay? So it's always a floor round in here. So we have this case, and we can use for round, we have a function, okay, that already exists on Python. So it's called round, and we can do 5 divided by 2. And we have the floor and the ceil function. So the floor method in Python returns floor of x, okay, so the largest integer not greater than x. And the ceil in here, it's going to return a ceiling value of x, that it's the smallest integer not less than x, okay? And to use these two functions, the floor and the ceil, we have to import the math library in our code. So to do this, we have to come here, import math, and we can use print, and we have to put math.floor, math.floor, too many O's, 5 divided by 2, and we can do print math.ceil, 5 divided by 2. Okay, and when we save it, we're going to have 5 prints. That the first one is the floating point division, the second is the integer division, the third is the round, okay. The fourth is the round using the floor, so it's going to give us the largest integer not greater than x, so it's going to give us 2, and the ceil it's going to give us the smallest integer not less than x, and it's going to be 3 here. Okay, so these are some tools that you might use when you coding with Python. That's why we're learning it in here. Okay, now we're going to work with square root. Okay, so basically here we're going to print the square root of 25, and when we click here it's going to give us 5. Okay, so the square root of 25 is 5, and we can do the same using the math function called squart. Okay, skrt. So this skrt function is an inbuilt function in Python programming language that returns the square root of any number. So we have to do the same thing as we did on floor and ceil. We have to import the math library, okay, and then we have to use math.skrt. So we're going to print math.skrt 25, and when we print it, let's see what happens. When we print here, it's going to give us 5, and when we run this in here, it's going to give us 5. Okay, so now we're going to do our last problem. Okay, and this problem is one of the most classic ones on programming. Okay, because we use a lot of fundamentals in here. Okay, so let's do this. Basically, we're going to loop through values from 1 up to 100 inclusive. Okay, so as we can see here, we're starting our counter variable at 1, and we're doing 100 repetitions. And we're going to check the condition. So if the current number is divisible by 3, we're going to print fizz. If the current number is divisible by 5, we're going to print buzz. If the current number is divisible by both 3 and 5, we're going to print fizz buzz, and else we're going to print the number. So basically the way that we can solve this on Scratch is doing what? We are going to use these if conditions, okay? And the first condition you can do is to check if the counter divided by 15 has modulo 0. Why 15? Because if a number is divisible by 3 and 5, so it's going to be divisible by 15, okay? If you do 3 times 5, it's going to give you 15. So this is our first condition. So we're going to check if the modulo of counter divided by 15 is 0, if the remainder. If it is, we're going to print fizzbuzz, okay? The other, you're going to check if counter divided by 5 has remainder 0, okay? And we're going to print buzz. If the counter divided by 3 has remainder 0, we're going to print fizz. And the else condition, we're just going to print the counter, okay? So this is basically the same idea as we have in here. So we can see 4, buzz, fizz, 7, 8, fizz, buzz, 11. So you see it's almost the same idea as the even numbers that we did previously, but now with this fizz buzz, okay? So let's do on Python this. We're going to kind of do the same logic that we're doing here. So basically, we're going to do a for loop, okay? So for counter in range, and since we're going to start counting at 1, we're going to put 1 here, okay? Because remember the default is 0, so since we don't want to start at 0, we're going to put 1. And we want to do 100 repetitions. We want to loop through values from 1 to 100 inclusive, right? So since we want to loop until 100 inclusive, we have to put here 101. Remember that the stop position is not included. Then what are we going to do? So now we're going to check the conditions, okay? So if counter if the division of counter by 15 has remainder equals to 0, we're going to print fizz buzz, okay? elif is one way of making the conditions change, okay? So if this condition is not satisfied, we go to the other one, okay? Or if this condition is satisfied, we don't go to the next one, okay? So elif counter, the division of counter by 3 has a remainder equals to 0, we're going to print fizz. elif, the division of counter by 5 has remainder equals to 0, we're going to print bus, and the else case, it's going to print counter, okay? So let's save it and let's run and see what happens. So here, when we check, Python Scratch is going to give us numbers from 1 up to 100, and we're going to follow these things. So 1 is the division of 1 by 15 or by 3 or by 5 is not going to give us a remainder 0. That's why we just print 1. 2 is the same idea, but in here, why are we printing this? Because 3, the division of 3 by 3 has a remainder 0, so this condition is satisfied, okay? Then we print 4, and why are we printing bus in here? Because what is the next value after 4? It's 5, right? But 5 divided by 5 has a remainder equals to 0. That's why we're printing bus, because we enter in this condition. And in here, for example, we have 14. What is the number after 14? It's 15, right? And when we do 15 divided by 15, the remainder is 0. So we're going to print this bus, okay? So this is basically the idea. We're going to print these things up to the number 100, okay? So I hope you enjoy this content and see you in the next video. Bye bye.